And let's bring in now Caitlin Huey-Burns, because you've actually been out on the campaign trail talking to some of the very kinds of voters that Anthony was just describing for us.
Yeah, and I love the way that he has broken these groups down, because you're seeing this on the trail, and kind of putting these labels really gives a good description about how people are feeling. One aspect of this is that single-issue abortion voter, and that's been what we've been trying to track this whole election. Has this issue, the Dobbs decision that came down in June, has this really changed the game in terms of how the midterms are shaping up? And you can argue that it has. We've seen over the past couple of weeks, especially in our poll over the weekend, that the fervor around abortion access and that as an issue has dissipated a little bit. But it still is such a big issue that Democrats need to push, because it's making these races competitive. I was recently in Wisconsin, where you have Mandela Barnes, the Democrat, running against Ron Johnson. The really big issue in that race, besides inflation and the economy, is crime. But Mandela Barnes is also pushing the issue of abortion, because in Wisconsin, they're currently under a law going back to 1849, banning nearly all abortions in the state. So he's really doing a lot of events in these closing days focused on the abortion issue and trying to at least keep the Democratic base engaged. Same thing happening in North Carolina. Again, economy, inflation running over everything. But Sherry Beasley, the Democrat there, is at least making it competitive, because North Carolina is a place that has a Democratic governor. And also, I went to an abortion clinic there that's seeing a total influx of patients from out of state, because they're really the only place in the South that doesn't have these restrictions. So you can see an electorate that may be more favorable to abortion access there. So is it going to be the be-all, end-all for Democrats? Probably not. The economy and inflation reigns over everything, and you have all these other issues going on. But they need this issue to turn out their base, and that's why you saw the president pushing for it earlier this week.
Yeah, exactly. It's so interesting to see how Democratic candidates are grappling with this issue, because they know it's been eclipsed in the polls by the economy, by inflation, and yet they have to still try to keep it front and center, or at least they believe they have to, because they need those restoring Roe voters, as Anthony put it, to turn out on Election Day. They know that those people are motivated. They need to make sure as many of them get to the polls as possible.
Exactly. And Republicans I've talked to, too, say that they have seen the difference that this has made in some of these races. And the main reason is because they argue that Democrats didn't really have much to be excited about when it comes to Biden. He has low favorability ratings. The economy is, not doing well. Inflation is terrible. People are feeling that in nearly every aspect of their lives. You have these pressured parents still reeling from the pandemic. So they argue that the base needed something to come out and vote for. And even if this dissipates as an issue, it still is something that has energized voters in terms of registering them. The key is, can you turn them out?
And then you had House Speaker Nancy Pelosi saying in an interview with Punchbowl today that Democrats need to do a better job of talking about inflation. Is that something that you're hearing on the campaign trail as well?
Yes.
That voters don't believe that the Democratic Party has done a good job of talking about that issue?
Yeah, this remains the top issue. When you ask voters what they're concerned about, it's just that things cost a lot. And it's not just gas prices. It's going to the grocery store, everything costs a lot. Going out to lunch, doing any everyday things just costs a lot of money. And even people who are supportive of the Biden administration or supportive of Democrats have said that, look, it kind of sucks, right? I mean, this is something that Democrats have tried to message on. They've tried to point to things like the Inflation Reduction Act that alleviate some of these costs. But a lot of what they've done doesn't address these specific issues, right? And they argue that, look, this is a global phenomenon, especially when it comes to gas prices. But when you're, coming to the end of the day, that, is still, things still cost a lot, right? So that kind of message, they're making clear that they're speaking to that. But as you well know, midterms are about turning out your base of support, too. And so you have to give your base something to kind of get excited about.
Right. And it's hard to make people feel good about inflation. Caitlin Huey-Burns, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your insights.